Thanks for joining us for CBN News Today. I'm Charlene Israel. A massive winter storm is hammering much of the northern U.S. today, packing tons of snow, freezing temperatures, and dangerous conditions. A blizzard warning is in effect for Long Island, and Boston is expecting up to 14 inches of snow. Caitlin Burke reports.
From the Midwest to the Northeast, people are starting off the new year thinking about snow. Nearly a foot has already fallen in Chicago, where residents are doing their best to dig out before the next round comes.
It does the job. It did the steps, it did the porch, now it's doing the car. You know, make do with what you got right now.
In Northwest Ohio, many communities got more than 6 inches of snow in just 40 hours, making for dangerous road conditions.
Well, I know people get tired of us saying to slow down, but that's the best thing you can do.
I think this winter was worse than last winter.
Now that storm is headed towards the East Coast, where forecasters say 70 million people are in its path, preparing for blizzard-like conditions. In Connecticut, shelters are gearing up to help those in need.
There's been instances where people have frozen to death outside, sleeping on the park benches, and the temperature's just too unbearable for them.
Salt trucks in New York worked late into the night prepping the roads. Crews are expected to work 16-hour shifts just to keep up with all the snow.
We're always worried about rush hour, and that's what it is. Don't be in a rush, though.
As much as a foot of snow is forecast through Friday, and temperatures are expected to continue to drop. Some areas seeing highs just above zero. Caitlin Burke, CBN News.
Rescue operations have begun for the 52 passengers trapped on a research ship stuck for more than a week in the Antarctic. A helicopter is expected to shuttle the passengers to a nearby Australian vessel. The helicopter was originally going to airlift the passengers to a Chinese icebreaker, but sea ice prevented the icebreaker from reaching the vessel. The helicopter will carry the passengers a dozen at a time in an operation expected to take about 5 hours. All 22 crew members are planning to stay with their icebound vessel, which is not in danger. It is now legal to buy marijuana for recreational purposes in Colorado. At least 24 pot shops opened in 8 towns January 1st, with thousands of people flocking to buy the drug.
I've been waiting 42 years for freedom.
Sold my house a couple months ago to prepare to move to Colorado.
We drove 17 hours to get here.
We want to be the Costco of marijuana.
But there was no shortage of skeptics worried retail pot would endanger the public. A group of addiction counselors and physicians said they're seeing more marijuana addiction problems, especially in youths.
Some people think that marijuana is just psychologically addictive, not physically addictive. It's just a soft drug, something like that. But I can tell you from personal experience that these kids who come to see us are dropping out of life.
They worry the drug will be more widely available to teens, even though legal sales are limited to adults over 21. One addiction expert at the University of Colorado Hospital said legalizing pot is, quote, just throwing gas on the fire. Authorities also warn that bringing it across state lines is against federal law. Turning overseas, where Israel is facing a host of challenges in this new year, from the Iranian nuclear threat to negotiations with the Palestinians, the pressure is ramping up. Chris Mitchell reports from Jerusalem.
Iranian media reported the Geneva Agreement may be implemented in late January, but the U.S. State Department says a few outstanding issues still need to be resolved. 6 world powers in Iran signed that agreement in November. It allows Iran to enrich uranium, but under tighter guidelines. It also eases economic sanctions on Iran. Whenever the agreement is implemented, some, like former Israeli ambassador to the UN, Dori Gold, believe the Geneva deal is flawed.
What the Iranians want to do is undermine the sanctions as much as possible. So when they go into future negotiations with the U.S. and the P5+1 in general, there will be no leverage on the American side to extract concessions from Iran.
A bipartisan bill in the U.S. Senate would impose new sanctions if the final agreement allows Iran to enrich uranium. The White House said it would veto the legislation. In addition to Iran, Israel faces major decisions about the ongoing peace negotiations with the Palestinians. U.S. Secretary of State is here in Jerusalem for yet another round of meetings with Israeli and Palestinian leaders. Kerry set an ambitious deadline of late April 2014 to establish a framework for final negotiations. But Palestinian negotiator Saeb Erekat said if Israel continues building in the biblical lands of Judea and Samaria, known as the West Bank, the negotiations will be over. Erekat's statement follows the release of 26 Palestinian prisoners, most of them convicted murderers. The release, part of Kerry's plan, was celebrated by the Palestinian Authority and upset Israel.
Last night, we saw them celebrating, glorifying terrorists, people responsible for killing innocent civilians, for killing children. This is not the way to start a new year. The Palestinian Authority must stop glorifying murder. It must stop celebrating terrorism.
Chris Mitchell, CBN News, Jerusalem.
Ariel Sharon, one of Israel's most famous leaders, may have only days left to live. The former prime minister has been in a coma since suffering a major stroke in 2006. Now doctors say his kidneys are shutting down and other major organs are in decline. Sharon had been one of Israel's top generals, well known for his victories over the Egyptian army in the Sinai Desert during the Six-Day War and the Yom Kippur War. He took a hard line on defending Israel and supporting building Jewish settlements in Palestinian-controlled territory. But near the end of his careers, he oversaw the withdrawal of Israeli troops from the Gaza Strip, which is now controlled by Hamas. A shocking scene at this year's Rose Parade in California. Two men were married on top of a giant wedding cake float as countless families and children watched. It was the first same-sex wedding ceremony to be performed during the Tournament of Roses Parade in Pasadena, California. Pro-family forces had been protesting in advance, calling for a boycott of the parade. The Boy Scouts of America is kicking off their new policy allowing openly gay scouts. The organization made that decision last May, but it just took effect January 1st. The ban on gay adult leaders remains intact. Meanwhile, Christians unsettled by the new policy are offering two alternatives. Trail Life USA is just getting started with 425 troops pre-chartered. Board Chairman John Stemberger says he and other former Boy Scout leaders are concerned that the policy could lead to some gay scouts abusing younger boys. The Rural Rangers program is another alternative. The Assemblies of God has offered that option for more than 50 years. The GED high school equivalence test has undergone major changes. The General Educational Development Test was created in 1942. It was meant to help World War II veterans who had dropped out of high school to get college benefits under the GI Bill. Now the test has been revamped to make it more rigorous and aligned to skills needed for college in today's workplace. The new test will be offered by computer only and will cost more. The rollout of the new test begins today. Coming up, floods that are clogging your heart, shrinking your brain, and that may be eating right now. You may be eating right now. Find out which foods are speeding up Alzheimer's disease and why you can't trust the food labels. Vitamin E may slow the progression of Alzheimer's disease. A new study says taking high dosage of vitamin E could fight mild to moderate Alzheimer's disease. It is the first study to show a treatment that alters the course of dementia at that stage, but that doesn't mean everyone should start taking lots of vitamin E. The director of medical and scientific operations for the Alzheimer's Association said no one should take vitamin E for Alzheimer's disease or other memory issues except under the supervision of a physician, because it can interfere with blood thinners, cholesterol drugs, and other medicines. Well, it sounds like a bad Hollywood horror movie, The Food That Ate Your Brain, but it's all too real. Science is now finding that trans fats can cause serious damage to your brain and even lead to Alzheimer's. Lori Johnson explains.
We know trans fats are bad for us, but do you really stay away or scan food labels for them? What if they caused Alzheimer's disease? That led to an investigation at Oregon Health and Science University.
We're interested in things that might have a role in the prevention of Alzheimer's disease, but also looking for things that might be actually causing the disease.
Dr. Gene Bowman and his colleagues studied 104 seniors with an average age of 87. They took blood samples to learn what foods their subjects ate and tested thinking and memory. scientists discovered those whose blood contained higher levels of trans fats had smaller brains. A person's brain size can change, and as you can see, brain shrinkage is one of the hallmarks of Alzheimer's disease. So a larger brain is healthier.
We know that in Alzheimer's disease that the brain shrinks at an accelerated pace as the disease and pathology spreads to a certain part of the brain. But if you have a larger brain and more brain tissue, you might have a reserve to handle that pathology better.
In addition to smaller brains, people who ate more trans fats also scored lower on thinking and memory tests.
Trans fats are, they're kind of all over the place.
Fried food, fast food, shortening, and margarine are full of trans fats. So are packaged foods like cookies, crackers, and chips. If you want to avoid trans fats, just read the label. If you see hydrogenated in the list of ingredients, put it back. But be careful. Sometimes front labels are stamped no trans fat when the food actually contains it. You see, food manufacturers can claim a food has no trans fat even if there's up to 0.5 gram in each serving. They meet the government standard by declaring tiny serving sizes. What often ends up happening is those serving sizes are so small, most people eat more than they think, including a lot of trans fat.
So when it comes to brain health, avoid trans fats to stay out of the danger zone. But if you really want to go the extra mile, look at what else the study revealed.
Scientists discovered the people with the largest brains and the top scores on thinking and memory tests ate diets high in 5 specific nutrients: vitamins B, C, D, E, and the seafood type of omega-3 fatty acids.
So it's a combination of staying away from the bad and getting the good. If you just do one, you may not get the bonus effect.
If you think you've heard this before, you're right. That's been touted as a heart-healthy diet. As it turns out, foods that help or hurt the brain have the same effect on the heart. Cardiologist Deepak Talreja tells his patients daily food choices can literally mean the difference between life and death.
Trans fats are probably one of the most dangerous things we can consume that you see in everyday foods available to us that have no restrictions on them.
Artery-clogging trans fats double your risk of a heart attack and contribute to strokes, vascular disease, even diabetes. On the other hand, vitamin-rich fruits, vegetables, and omega-3s reduce the risk of heart disease. Dr. Talreja recommends taking daily fish oil supplements, enough so that the EPA and the DHA fats in them equal 1 to 2 grams.
There are many simple things we could do that would improve health across the nation, would help the economics of healthcare and everything else so much. If patients didn't get sick in the first place, it would cost a lot less to take care of them, and we'd all have better quality of life. This is a topic that really doesn't get enough attention at all.
So whether you're targeting your heart or your brain, the prescription is the same. Say no to trans fats and load up on vitamins and fish oils. Lori Johnson, CBN News.
Well, it is clear trans fats are bad for your brain, but researchers have also found something that helps your brain stay healthy. Exercise is the best lifestyle choice you can make to cut your risk of dementia as you get older. Researchers at Cardiff University in the UK studied key habits in more than 2,200 men since 1979. They found the best habits to avoid disease include exercise, a healthy diet, low body weight, not smoking, and a low intake of alcohol. But they found that exercise is the best way to keep your mind healthy as you age. Up next, secret believers. Christians from several nations of the former Soviet Union come together. We were there to witness this once-in-a-lifetime event. South Sudan's warring factions meet in Ethiopia today, hoping to head off a civil war in the world's newest nation. More than 1,000 people have been killed and 200,000 displaced in ethnic and political violence since mid-December. Representatives of former Vice President Machar arrived in Addis Ababa this morning. South Sudan President Salva Kiir says Machar's troops tried to pull off a coup. Those troops say Kiir is a dictator who tried to disarm them. The fighting dredged up historic rivalries between the Dinka and Nuer ethnic groups. The UN says some people were killed simply because of their ethnicity. In many countries, you can be executed for believing in Jesus. Christians there have to be cautious about sharing their faith. But last winter, George Thomas got exclusive access to a secret gathering of believers in a former Soviet republic. We have disguised their names and identity to protect their lives.
The setting could not have been more ideal.
This is a beautiful location. 70% of the country is mountainous. Locals call it the second Switzerland of Asia.
This is the mountains of Kyrgyzstan.
Our goal was to find a safe place away from the city to not draw attention of the authorities.
For a few days, Vitali and a handful of Christians gathered in this secluded villa tucked away in the mountains, about a 2 hours drive outside the capital city, Bishkek.
We worship, pray, and strategize how to effectively share the love of Christ in our countries.
CBN News cannot show you their faces or reveal their real names for security reasons. In this room are secret believers from Kyrgyzstan, Uzbekistan, Kazakhstan, and Tajikistan, all former Soviet republics in Central Asia, experiencing a rising tide of hostilities against believers. All are members of a Christian ministry that's reaching young people in the former Soviet Union.
It is practically impossible to openly share about Jesus Christ. Doing so will get you beaten, arrested, or killed.
Marat is a youth leader from Uzbekistan. Last year was a difficult year for you.
Fortunately, I wasn't arrested, but I was repeatedly interrogated by secret police, accused of gathering people in my house. They said that what I was doing is illegal.
He runs an informal Christian school training Uzbek leaders.
The pressure is unrelenting. You can't relax. You're constantly under stress. You cannot trust anyone because you don't know if they'll turn you in or accuse you of proselytizing.
Dawood is from Kazakhstan, the largest of the 5 Central Asian countries. There were no Kazakh Christians back in 1990. Today, however, there are 15,000, but strict religion laws make it very difficult for churches to register.
According to our law, you cannot attend church until you are 18 years old. That means we cannot hold youth meetings, discipleship classes, or Bible study.
Ferouz is from Tajikistan. This is home video of a secret house church smuggled out of the country and obtained exclusively by CBN News. The meetings are small and typically held in a believer's home.
The people in this video know exactly what's at stake. Our parents taught us from childhood that one day we may have to sacrifice our lives.
7 million people live in Tajikistan. 1,000 of them are Christian.
Each life counts. God says, be thankful every day, rejoice in every soul that comes into heaven. That's what keeps us going, one life at a time.
Religious freedom exists in all 5 countries under the Constitution, but barely. While Islam is the dominant religion, a more radical expression is taking root in Central Asia. Dmitry Kabak is a human rights lawyer in Bishkek. He says fear of radicalism has led governments to adopt laws controlling all religions, including Islam and Christianity.
Groups from Saudi, Turkey, and elsewhere come in with a different interpretation and practice of Islam. That worries the authorities. Some of the radical groups have engaged in terrorist activities.
Oleg works in remote villages of Kyrgyzstan. He remembers what it was like spiritually soon after the fall of the Soviet Union.
There was a lot of freedom in the 90s. People could openly share the gospel. But eventually, Islam started to make a move and gain influence.
Up here in the mountains of Kyrgyzstan, the horse is another popular mode of transportation, especially to get around some of these tough terrains and these steep hills. You know, for the believers, this is a spiritual oasis because it's an opportunity to get away from the almost daily routine harassment and persecution from the authorities and to come together in a safe place a beautiful place and to get spiritually energized.
The beauty, the backdrop, the scenery, what a wonderful distraction from our daily challenges. To see Kyrgyz, Uzbek, Kazakh, and Tajik believers in the same place at one time is so encouraging. We draw strength from each other. We know we're not in this spiritual battle alone.
Encouraged, refreshed, and re-energized, the believers are back home now, and uncertain of the days ahead. Yet they stand boldly convinced of a calling to make the name of Jesus Christ known, no matter the cost. George Thomas, CBN News, somewhere in the mountains of Kyrgyzstan.
Finally today, a Guatemalan boy has received an incredible gift thanks to the partners of CBN. His sight has been restored. Eduardo's eyesight was getting darker and more painful as time went by. If left untreated, his vision would become severely impaired. But a project between Operation Blessing and CBN allowed Eduardo to receive the surgery he needed. The project treated dozens more patients for cataracts and other ailments, restoring sight and hope. Wonderful. Well, that's going to do it for now on CBN News Today. You can find more of our exclusive coverage of the issues you care most about at cbnnews.com. And tell us what you think about the stories you've seen here today. You can do that on Facebook or at CBN News on Twitter. We hope you join us next time. Have a great day. God bless.